Hi, everybody, and welcome to our next episode of Coaching from the Soul. Today's topic is experiencing life from the inside out, and I'm pleased to be here with the group of super coaches, and we're going to have a lovely conversation. As always, if you're on the chat, feel free to ask any questions or just say hi or add any comments, and I'll kick us off by handing over to Jen. Welcome, Jen.
Thanks, Graham. So, obviously, I knew the title of today's conversation before, so I was pondering around living life from the inside out. And before I share some thoughts, I'd like to invite you to consider what living from the inside out means to you and what your experience of living from the inside out is. Now, I don't know if the answer to those two questions will be the same for you or different. I know for me, certainly in the past, I strongly suspect I'd have answered those two questions differently. Whereas now, living from the inside out just seems what's fundamentally true for us as humans. So, for example, we're living in the experience of our thinking. It may seem at times that it's something that our partner, our parents, our kids, our boss, our clients has said and done that is causing our feeling, when it just seems so obvious now to me that that's actually my thinking around all that. And what occurs to me is it's the beauty of the simplicity of it all. Now, in the past, we use the word understanding a lot in this conversation. And when I've heard understanding in the past, my intellect has always gone, I know this one. I know how to do understanding. I've got to figure it all out. Got to be able to speak eloquently and elegantly around this topic. Got to be able to have all the answers to that I can pass exams on it. So if we take a natural phenomena that we're all aware of, it's like gravity. I'd have previously have wanted to go, oh yes, there's these things, this force and gravitational pull, and be able to answer exam questions on that. In fact, I'm fairly sure I have answered exam questions on gravity in the past, and that to me was understanding. Whereas now what I think I'm pointing to when we're referring to understanding is more about the noticing and the listening and just observing. So using gravity as an example, it's like noticing if you drop something, it falls down, that we're not floating up in the air. That's the simplicity of the level of noticing that occurs to me. And it's the same with noticing what seems to be true for all us humans. So in the past, if someone had said to me, oh, living from the inside out, I'd have perhaps come out with, oh, well, that must mean that I'm living from an understanding and an experience of what my beliefs and values are. So therefore, I have to know what my beliefs and values are. I must figure those out so I can consciously choose what to do. So it's in line with those at every time. Whereas now it seems to me that I've noticed that I have an innate wisdom like we all have. And when I'm in that place in touch with that, I don't need to have figured out what my values are, because when I'm in the connection with that, any choices I make from that are already in line with that. It's so much simpler than I've been known to make it out to be in the past. And that overthinking, I know what that feels like. And I tend to notice when I'm revved up in my thinking. So noticing and observing that, I know now not to be making any life-changing decisions when I'm in that place. It's those experiences, that simplicity of noticing without adding all the therefores and what that must mean. That's for me what living from the inside out and the experience of living from the inside out means. What about you, Roseanne? Roisin, sorry.
No, thanks, Jen. I love listening to that actually, because I know we'd both kind of had a thought before this call around what we might want to say or what we might want to share around this. And yeah, listening to you made me smile, because I think I've gone down quite a similar route. And I started by asking myself, okay, so what does living inside out mean to me? And all I wrote down was one thing, and that it means I feel my thoughts and not my circumstances. And then I thought, oh, like, hang on, maybe a more interesting question for me is, what doesn't it mean? Because I think I had a lot of thinking around, if I know we experience our thinking and not our circumstances, I had a lot of kind of expectations around how I expected that to show up in my life. So to me, actually, it doesn't mean, living from the inside out doesn't mean I should be calm all the time. That I know I can feel calm inside, so I should just be able to be calm with everything in my kind of circumstances. It doesn't mean that I should like everything. It doesn't mean that I shouldn't get annoyed with things. Like, it doesn't mean that I can't have preferences and likes and dislikes still. And actually, I found I had far more answers to the what doesn't it mean for me, compared to the what does it mean. And I found it like I feel like it's one topic as well I'm seeing more and more about. And one, I suppose, more recent insight for me was, I'd still use the language that, so I know now it works inside out. I know it's not kind of my reality, the outside external circumstances making me feel a certain way. But sometimes it really, really felt like it was. And it felt really true and really real to me that external things were making me feel a certain way. And the language I used around that was kind of like, oh, I'm living outside in this week or today. I'm doing life this way round, outside in. And it then occurred to me, like, oh, that's impossible to do. Like, it's not like I can flip between living inside out and then living outside in. And when I live inside out, that's the right way to live. And when I'm living outside in, I've like slipped again and I'm in bad habits. Like, it just occurred to me, oh no, living outside in is impossible. Even if it feels like reality is making me feel a certain way, it's still internal. It's still my thinking. And I was talking with someone I was coaching the other day, and we were kind of exploring this a little bit. And because sometimes it can feel really real to me that someone does something out there and it makes me feel a certain way inside. And I thought, oh, actually, what if the feeling I get is like a warning that I'm about to use my thoughts in a really unhelpful way? And I've just associated the feeling, I've just linked the cause of that feeling to the external thing. And actually, it's still being caused by my thoughts and is like warning me, hey, you're about to go into some unhelpful thinking here. And I think I'd never thought about it like that before, because I think the feeling always seemed so closely linked to circumstances and so closely linked to the outside. And I think it's helped for me to get curious about, oh, what if the feeling really is coming from my thoughts? What if it's just a warning that I'm about to get into some unhelpful thinking? Because I can't live outside in. Like, even if it feels like that, like, that's just not how we work. It's not how the world works. yeah, there's no option but to live inside out, whether we kind of know it or not. And one other thing I wanted to, because I was thinking, okay, how has it like helped me, or how has it kind of changed, maybe now being more aware of things being inside out and that's how it works. How has that like helped me? And I think I feel really empowered by it, and knowing, I think things externally can so often feel outside of our control. And to me, it isn't then about bringing control back in and controlling my thoughts or controlling my feelings, but it can feel to me a real big relief knowing, oh, this feeling hasn't come from that external thing. This feeling's all come from me internally. And I know there are some great feelings internally as well. And maybe they'll show up in the next moment or tomorrow or soon. It feels really, a phrase that really rings true to me is, I used to outsource my well-being so much. If this thing's okay, I'm going to be good. Like if this happens, my well-being, I'm fine. And I think understanding now that it's all inside out, I outsource less. And that's really cool because it's all within me, and it's all in me already to feel the way I want to feel all the time. And it makes the outside to me feel a lot less scary. And it means I want to control the outside a lot less. I have to react a lot less to the outside because it just takes away its power. And I think that's been one of the really cool things for me that I've seen from living life, seeing that life can only be lived inside out. Yeah.
Thanks, Roisin. And yeah, hi to Heather. I saw Heather popped up with a hello, so nice to have you here. I think as I was listening to that, I mean, I love this, like, you used to outsource well-being and now you realize it's there. Like, that really resonated for me. I think what I've noticed with this is, to Jen's point, I think about wisdom being there and that being there all the time. It's this thing that it's there, but sometimes it's hidden behind all of the thinking. And the more I notice that actually when I stop thinking, the wisdom comes, then that just, it's great to know you can rely on it. I think that's kind of the practical thing about this. It made me laugh earlier actually, because I was about to pay for something and I was like, oh, I don't know the 3 digits on the bottom of my card. Like, I should know this. And again, I think that's the thinking getting in the way of the wisdom. So I go downstairs, and before I even open the drawer where the card is, in my head come the 3 digits. And I was like, okay, we did know this, but we knew it when the thinking wasn't clouding it over. And so isn't that interesting that I think for me, what I've noticed is when there's a bad feeling, it's usually because I'm thinking I should do something differently. Whereas the moment I just get emotion again, like walking downstairs to go and get the number, there it is. I knew it all along. So yeah, I thought that was quite interesting to spot. And that speaks to this idea that we're innately well. It's there all the time. I'm going to pop across to John now and just see, John, what's been coming up for you as we've been talking?
What's been coming up in some ways is very selfish, in that we're on here and we're having conversations from the soul and sharing so that others can maybe benefit from what we're hearing and sharing. And I feel I'm benefiting enormously from listening to Roisin and Jen. I'm thinking about gravity, and it's great to know that gravity is a principle of physics that exists within our sphere, within the earth. But most people accept that gravity is a principle that we live by. And yet there is a principle that we live from an inside out perspective. Our thinking is what's driving our experience of our existence. But there are a lot fewer people who accept that as a principle. And it becomes very, very difficult. And then Russian explained, yes, it's inside out, but sometimes have I slipped back into an outside in, but you can't slip back into an outside in, because in the same way that just because I don't notice gravity, it hasn't gone away. If I think I'm outside in, it doesn't mean I'm outside in. It just means I think I'm outside in. I'm still inside out. So I loved that sharing of that, and I love to see that even more clearly. And the outsourcing of well-being. I feel a blog coming on writing about the outsourcing of my own well-being. I don't know where it'll end up, but I think it's wonderful to see that we have handed over control of our well-being whenever we believe that it's our circumstances, or we believe that our triggers, or we believe our external experience is, or our feelings are coming from our external experience. There's a lady that I read a lot of, Dr. Antoinette Brax. She's a coach and business consultant, and she talks about everything in our outer world flows from our inner world. And to me, that's what experiencing living from the inside out is. It's just that understanding that everything in our outer world flows from our inner world. So I love it. Thanks, Jen. Thanks, Roshan, for inspiring insight within me this evening.
Thanks, John. And I know we picked out a few quotes just before, sometimes showing quotes, but I really like this one. You know, the knowledge that one has a remedy within reach is often as effectual as the remedy itself. And I think, if not more so, and that again really speaks to this idea that well-being is within, and when we see that it's there, even if it's not visible in the moment, then actually that kind of brings that hope, and I think wellness comes from there. I'm going to bring Edwin in, just interested to hear what's coming up for you, Edwin.
Lots of thinking around it, but I'll tell you what really what came up and still circling in my head, and even without having been intentional around it, how the past conversations that we've had seem to have connected within the theme for today. Because what's coming up for me is that when I peek through the veil of the reality of my own illusion, and I connect with my essence, and I use my thinking, my thoughts as a tool that will serve me, I'm experiencing the life from the inside out. And then something else that was said today, that it is impossible to really experience life from the outside in. And even though sometimes you feel that's real, knowing that that's not the case is already empowering enough to realize that at any given time, regardless how my thinking is influencing my feeling, I can go back to the other piece that allows me to really be connected to who I truly am. And I was thinking about this piece, and then I thought, for those of you who might have seen the movie The Matrix, and at times I felt like the main guy in the movie, Neo, that he swallowed that blue pill. I had to. And I'm awakening to my truest self, to live not in reaction to my external circumstances, but from a place of that inner wisdom, that place where, where the storms of life may rage, but the light of our authentic self, that essence, shines ever bright. And even on the situation that we're dealing with right now, because we all are, that seems to be a consistent truth to it. In my own journey of this awakening, it has become essential for me to shift that perspective from that external world to the internal realm of my own consciousness, because this shift in perspective is allowing me to tap into this infinite potential that lies within me and open doors to a life of profound fulfillment and infinite possibility. And although I will admit it's not always the case, I still find myself experiencing that it feels like life from the outside in. And I'm more aware of it now. And as soon as I noticed it, as soon as I remember it, it's almost like a switch goes off, and I almost immediately start believing my own stories. And I'm back to the freaking land of beautiful possibilities. I don't know what else to call it. But that lot comes up to me.
Yeah, I love that. I think we've said that there's a feeling, isn't there? Like more possibilities come when we're in that feeling. I saw Heather had added a comment, actually, the knowing versus thinking we know. And I think we're all kind of pointing to this idea that, yeah, they feel different. And when we're in one versus the other, then, yeah, it can make sense, as you said, Jen, to make decisions when we're in one versus the other, and to be very mindful about that. For me, I think I notice this way more when I'm having imaginary conversations in my head with other people, or thinking about how they've made me feel, and then realizing actually I'm feeling that, but hang on, that conversation hasn't happened. So yeah, that for me is another example of life from the inside out. I'll come back over to you, Jen, in a minute. What's coming up for you?
Yeah. And how cool is it when we spot that we're having an imaginary conversation and that's all that's going on? Because once you know that that's what it is, it's like, oh, okay, that's not real, even though it looks and feels really real at times. And as Adrian was talking about, our own wisdom, just before this call, I was giving my dad a lift back, and he was telling me about his day and how he'd been trying to work something out, and he spent about 3 hours trying to work out why the electric fence where he wasn't working. And he tried everything he could think of, and in the end he gave up. And then had that thought of, oh, I'll just check. And that was the thing that was causing it not to work. And I was very good. I didn't laugh, though I did internally. I went, oh yeah, that would be our own innate knowledge, wisdom coming in, even though he certainly wouldn't use that language. That when we give up, that knowledge can come through when we're listening for it, and we may have tried intellectually everything else there. So yeah, that's what reminded me about that. And for me, just knowing that that's there is so reassuring and so easy. That simplicity that I don't have to work it all out. It's not all up to me or you or any of us. But that's what's coming up for me.
Yeah, I love that. The so often the answer comes, doesn't it? Like if we're trying to solve a problem, so often it comes when we give up, or when we go to sleep and wake up in the morning, or in the shower, or we go for a walk. Like there's so many, and as you say, that's allowing the space, the thinking gets out the way, and that wisdom comes through. I've seen that so frequently. Coming back over to John for a minute, what's coming up for you, John?
Yeah, what's coming up is when you think about living and experiencing life from the inside out, and we talk a lot about the nature of thought and spotting the nature of thought and spotting that it is our thought that's creating the feelings about our circumstances. But it's great to hear that our inner essence that shines so brightly, as Edmund talked about, our inner wisdom that Jen's just talked about. It's great to hear that gets acknowledged, because it's not just seeing that it's thought, it's recognizing that beneath the thought, beneath our thinking, there is this wisdom, there is this essence, there is this universal intelligence of life that's also operating. And it might be able to help your dad find the source of the electrical problem on the fence, but it helps with so much more, and it helps with our well-being, and it helps with our feeling at peace with the world, even when the world looks like it's dealing us a very, very nasty hand. That inner wisdom, that inner well-being, that inner peace that's under the settled thought, under the thinking that we have. I think it's wonderful to see that pointed out. So thanks, team.
Thanks, John. Another quote that came up. Thanks, Jen, for spotting these before. But how little can be done under the spirit of fear, Florence Nightingale. Like a lovely, I think, again pointing to this idea that that inner wisdom is there, and it comes out in certain states and not always visible in others. Roisin, coming back to you.
And I love that quote, actually, and it was just because I've just been sat thinking about kind of feelings, and if kind of knowing things work from an inside out perspective, our feelings come from us, or kind of like it led me to question how our feelings are created and what our feelings kind of are there for, or what they do. And I think I'm seeing more and more that our feelings are there as an indicator of how we're using our thoughts. And one thing from a more practical sense, I suppose, one thing that I've been playing with recently is if there's like an uncomfortable feeling like fear, is instead of, I think previously I would have looked at what's causing the fear, how can I sort that out externally, how can I shift that, change that, remove it, get away from it. And I think now one thing I love to do is kind of to really focus in on the feeling and kind of like shut my eyes, be with the feeling, and kind of have a think about how it feels, where I feel it, what it does. And I so often notice the feeling fade, whether it might be fear. If I focus on the feeling of the fear, it fades. And it's because I'm not focused on the thoughts that were causing the fear in the first place. And I love the idea that our feelings there as like a warning or a distraction from our thoughts, or a, hey, focus on me, like look at me as a feeling, and I'll distract you from that scary thought you're having. And I think it makes me see even more how it works inside out, because we can all create like feelings in our body without our external circumstances change. We can all sit here and kind of go, how does stress feel in a body? How does fear, like, make myself feel scared right now? How can I feel sad right now? Like I could do that right now without anything changing. And it just makes it more clear to me how it's inside out. I'd love to kind of just read a bit from Mavis's Khan's book, and it's called The Secret. And I think this, I was thinking earlier about kind of maybe a text I've written, text I've read or something I've listened to that's kind of like really resonated with me around this kind of inside out topic. And I think this letter I come back to time and time again about kind of almost a really nice summary of everything we've been talking about over this month on these calls. And it's quite long, so bear with me, because I was going to just read some shorter bits from it, but it just all felt too lovely not to read it all. Dear kids and former kids, I have a secret to tell you. Nobody meant to keep it from you. It's just that it's been one of those things that's so obvious that people couldn't see it, like looking all over for the key that you have in your hand. The secret is that you are already a completely whole and perfect person. You are not damaged goods. You are not incomplete. You are not flawed. You are not unfinished. You do not need remodeling, fixing, polishing, or major rehabilitation. You already have within you everything you need to live a wonderful life. You have common sense, wisdom, genius, creativity, humour, self-esteem. You are pure potential. You are missing nothing. The only thing that can keep you from enjoying all that you already are is a thought. One thought. Your thought. Not someone else's thought. Your thought. Whatever thought you are thinking at the moment that feels more important to think than feeling grateful, alive, content, joyful, optimistic, loving, and at peace. That's the only thing that's between you and happiness. And guess who's in charge of your thinking? Guess who gets to decide where your attention goes? Guess who gets to write, produce, direct, and star in the moment that you're in the middle of? You. Just you. Not your past, which is stored thought. Not the future. Did you ever notice that it never shows up? Not your parents. They will think their own thoughts. Or your friends. Ditto. Or school, or television, or situations, or circumstances, or anything else. Just you. Thinking is an awesome capability. Like any capability, it can be used whether as a tool or as a weapon against ourselves and others. And just like with any other tool, we can tell whether we're using it for or against ourselves by how it feels. When we think against ourselves or others, we get in trouble. When we don't, we usually stay out of trouble. Feelings exist to warn us away from using our thinking to create trouble in our lives and to guide us back to our natural, healthy ability to live our lives to the fullest. So, please remember that your thoughts are not always telling you the truth. When we're in low moods, feeling down, our thoughts are not to be trusted. Our IQ drops. When our thoughts pass and we lighten up, our thinking is once again creative, positive. Our IQ goes up. The only way you can feel badly about yourself and your life is if you think badly about them. It's up to you. Every single minute you're alive, it's always up to you. This is the best, most liberating secret I have ever learned, and I want you to know it too. With love, Mavis. And everything in that to me speaks to our own innate wisdom, our own creativity, our own ability to kind of like we've got our own back. Like there's a natural safety net that we live with 100% of the time. And it just really, to me, resonates with how our reality is thought created, how our feelings are thought created. We experience our thoughts. And we just get to choose what ones we give energy to.
Thanks, Roisin. Edwin, going to come over to you for a minute.
I feel that we should have just ended on that reading and dropped the microphone and walk away. But something that it occurs to me too, and I was really reflecting on the feeling being created by my own thinking as I'm hearing to Roshin. And what pops up was that this extraordinary feeling of experiencing life from the inside out is not a destination, but a journey. It's a continuous process of growth and exploration and self-discovery that requires for us to embrace uncertainty and to let go of limiting beliefs and expectations. But more importantly, it's about to trust in the unfolding of life as it is, to embrace this journey that we are all in, and to open ourselves to all these new experiences, opportunities, connections. Just about embracing the truth that lies beyond illusion and stepping into the realm of the freaking beautiful potential possibilities.
I love that. Thank you, Edwin. And I think it reminds me of the state of wondering, like we've talked before about when we're in that state of I wonder. Like quite often that takes us to a different, lighter place where more things feel possible, like the wonder of possibility versus in that place of thinking. So yeah, thank you very much. I'm gonna bring us all back just so we can give a little wave as we come towards the end of our session today. But thanks very much to everybody for what a lovely light-hearted conversation, always our aim. And thanks to everybody for listening, and we'll see you all again soon. Thanks very much.